So, on this episode of the Love, Happiness, and Success podcast, I was thinking, what can I do this week that would be most helpful for you guys, for my listeners? And so, we've been talking a lot lately about like relational stuff and how to manage the stress and anxiety of everything that's going on. But also, I'm well aware of the fact that being worried about your job or just having gone through an abrupt layoff is very much on everyone's mind. And so I thought I'm going to bring Markie and Allison into this party because Markie, my colleague, she is a therapist, but she's also an amazing career coach. And she works a lot with people who are trying to figure out career transitions. And my colleague, Allison Aranda, is a resume writing consultant, but also an interview coach. And I figured I'd haul her in here too to talk about the nuts and bolts of, okay, you know what you want to do, but like, here's the how to get the job part. So thank you both so much for being here with me today.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. This is so wonderful. Thanks.
Well, and I think much needed because, have you guys heard from any clients that you work with here at Growing Self yet that they're like, "Ooh, guess what? My company just closed down, or it looks like I'm going to be heading towards a layoff." I mean, are you hearing that, or have your clients been fairly well insulated from the situation?
I think that the people, at least that I've been talking with, a lot of times they end up with me, at least the Growing Self people have ended up saying, oh, like there's a big issue, or it was really uncertain or unsteady. And so a lot of the people that I see through Growing Self and a lot through the career coaches that I work with, they already are looking for something, so it is not a complete surprise when like this is hit. So I really expect people to be coming and talking to me in the next week to 2 weeks after I've been starting to hear about layoffs and furloughs and a lot of that starting to happen in the last couple of days. I feel like I'm going to start seeing that in the next couple of weeks. People write themselves up and say, okay, now what do I do? How do I pick myself up and move on from that?
Yeah. No, I could see that like as we're recording this, and it's crazy because like things are happening just so fast. And like, so right now it's the afternoon of Friday, the 27th or so, could be totally different by this time on Monday, but that things are still very much shaking out and people are figuring out what the career landscape is going to be looking like for them. So what about you, Markie?
Right. I mean, I completely agree. I haven't heard any clients so far that are in an actual state of crisis due to the virus, but I have had a lot of conversations over the topic of what am I going to do? How does this change my trajectory of what I've already started moving into? And so it is along the same lines of how is this going to change my career future? And how do I prepare now for that?
Big, important questions. And if it's okay, maybe you could just start by talking a little bit more about that concern, because I think that's something on everyone's mind. It's like, I've been operating as a professional in the world with this like set of expectations about what I'm doing and what to expect and where I'm going and what's going to happen next. And now all of that is in question. And so like when you're talking to clients who are like, I don't know what my future is going to look like anymore, I'm curious to know what kinds of ideas or perspectives you share with them that you found helpful.
I will say, I think the first part of everything of where I go with my clients is a growth mindset.
Yeah.
And really coming back to a place of resiliency first and foremost. And so this idea of how do I change and how do I make it adaptations? How do I do this? This isn't going to be the first time you've done that. This isn't going to be the last time you've done that. It's just that this is happening on a global scale. And so we're all dealing with it together. And there's going to be more unknowns and things that are out of your control. And that's true for most transitions that we go through. Not to say though that, the market and what's out there in terms of opportunity won't change. They probably will change. But it's coming from making sure that if you are going to take a step forward, that you're grounded first in the idea, less around what you can't control, but more around what you can. And so that's where we start off with clients. But beyond that, that idea of how can I make this change really mean something, and even if there are limited options, how do I make the best of it? I think that comes back down to what's at the core of this person and what they're looking to do. It might mean that instead of, going and starting their own business and being an entrepreneur right out of the gate, that they get more practice and experience in maybe a safer, more controlled setting for them.
Yeah. That is like fantastic advice. I mean, the first piece of it is to accept that maybe we need to shift a little bit, but also like use this as an opportunity for growth that maybe you had been planning on taking action and kind of charging right in, but this is an invitation almost to slow down and maybe be more intentional and thoughtful about who you are, what's a good fit, where this is all heading. Is that kind of what I'm hearing you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's really getting in touch with what matters most to you.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times, especially people that I work with, there's a feeling of rush of I don't have what I want just yet. And this is kind of a worldwide slowdown. We're taking a break. We're really saying, okay, we need to take a step back and really see what matters most to us, and then make moves from that point rather than just feeling like I need to get it done.
Yeah.
And really saying, okay, let me take a moment in time to say what matters for my career. And this isn't going to be just for career. I have to say, I consider career as a part of your lifestyle. And so thinking about lifestyle, career together, I think it's funny because a lot of people are now working from home. And so we're seeing even a bigger mix of the two. And so we're not really able to separate them anymore. And so I encourage my clients to think about that more and more, about what they not only want their career to look like, but what they want their lifestyle to look like. I think you hit the nail on the head.
That's another wonderful though point, is like back way the heck up and think about this big picture, values, work-life balance. And I'm also almost wondering, like, if maybe for some people this happens on like a parallel track, like maybe big picture, there's an opportunity to slow down, think about what you really want, get intentional around how to create it. And Allison, one of the reasons that I wanted you to be part of this conversation too, is because you have a lot of experience around like, if you need a job, here's how to get one, kinds of things. And I wonder if for some people, I mean, just, the economic realities are very real. Like if somebody recently lost a job and now doesn't have income, perhaps on like a more personal level, this is a period of growth and bigger picture stuff, but maybe short term, they need something to pay the bills for the next 2, 3, 4 months. So I wonder if there's that component of it as well, and that those things could happen together. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've certainly been in crappy jobs before that did not really require a lot of mental energy. And so I'm like, wandering around wiping off tables and emptying ashtrays, because when I was a waitress, it was in the 90s when you still smoke in restaurants. But anyway, but like there was a lot of my mind that could still be devoted to like grand plans and stuff like that. So Allison, I'm wondering what thoughts you might have for people who are like, oh crap, what am I going to do?
I think that that's a really good question, because I don't think that there are a lot of people out there that have an unlimited amount of personal savings to just live off while they figure out and wait for the right jobs.
We are middle class kids. I get it.
Really good ways that you can think about it. Number one, you can just go get a job. And think about the places that are hiring. Really,
who's hiring?
And I was looking this up in preparation for our conversation today. CNN was talking about the places that are hiring, and we're talking about thousands of jobs here that are hiring right now. Really think about the industries that are hiring today. That's healthcare, that's biotech, that's pharma. Those are probably having a big influx of just needing people. But if you need a job tomorrow, places like Walmart, CVS, Instacart, Amazon, Amazon's hiring for warehouse people. They're hiring for delivery drivers. They're hiring for just about everything. Pepsi, as a corporation, is hiring something like 100,000 people over the next 3 months. Dollar General.
That's a lot of people.
GE, all of these places were saying that they were hiring between 20 and 50,000 people. So yes, it's not glamorous to have to go and work at the grocery store. But if you need a job today or tomorrow, those places are absolutely hiring and needing people. You can walk in and apply, and
they give you a uniform right there.
What your professional resume looks like isn't going to be as necessary as, are you willing and able to do the job today?
Yeah.
And I think in today's day and age, you have to realize that there's no shame in taking a bridge job. And the second thing about writing a resume and writing a career resume is you don't necessarily need to put that on your resume as the bridge that got you through from professional job A to professional job B.
Oh, you can leave it out.
You can leave it out. Absolutely. Oh. The one thing that you really need to know about resumes that I always talk through with people is a resume is a story about your professional career life. It does not have to have every short-term job you ever had on there. When I was applying for jobs straight out of college, I made the mistake of putting on that I had worked at a churro stand when I was 16. It was so funny. The lady who interviewed me, I worked for a temp agency, and she said, you could take that off. Like that's not necessary. Don't leave things on your resume. And so you can today apply for a job.
Yeah.
And be able to bridge yourself if that's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Number one. Number two, though, I always tell people that if you are applying for that longer term job that is going to be a career position for you,
mm-hmm.
really, like Markie said, take your time.
Yeah.
Apply for every job that is an accounting job out there. Apply for the ones that you're truly interested in, and make sure that you, even in a world where there's a lot of concern and maybe stress and anxiety about what am I going to do next, you really need to make sure that the position that you take is one that you're going to be willing to stay with for 3 to 5 years. Because that is going to be a long-term role on your resume. You are worse off. I tell people I would rather have you take the job at King Soopers than have you take the job at the wrong accounting firm, stay there for 6 months, and then jump. You are going to be in a worse place long term if you take the wrong job, take the wrong professional job now, than waiting a little bit longer for the right opportunity.
That is fantastic advice. You're saying like don't panic yourself into taking the wrong professional job. Find something that's like good enough for now and just like do that for a while to like buy yourself some time before you get into like the serious for real job that you want ultimately. That is really good advice.
Allison, I could not agree more with you. I just have to say that I hear that all of the time from clients around wanting to have that panic jump of they're hiring. It's in my field. It's the same title or a little bit above, but it doesn't match anything that I want, but it just feels safe right now.
Yeah.
And the reality is you're going to get in, you're going to feel safe for about 6 months. The panic is going to come down. And then you are going to have to explain to the next company that you go to why you're leaving the job after 6 months.
Yeah.
They're going to be concerned about hiring you because they don't know that you're not going to jump in 6 months from them.
Like the accounting job, like the King Soopers job, everybody's like, oh yeah.
But you don't have to put that King Soopers job on your resume. Oh, yeah. Everybody knows that you're working at King Soopers.
Right.
So if you have a job where you were laid off of your accounting job in April of 2020, and you take a bridge job or a bridge gig for 3 or 4 months. You do not need to put that on your resume. And so in 3 or 4 months, when an interview happens and you apply for a job, somebody says, what have you been doing for the last 3 or 4 months? You say, I've been picking up some ad hoc work to pay the bills, but what I've really been doing is focusing on finding the right job for me. And then
it's true.
It's very true. I always tell people when they write a resume, when they interview for a job, the first thing you need to be is as honest as you can be. And the second thing is you don't need to include everything. So you don't need everything on your resume. You don't need to put in that you have had 3 contract jobs.
The churro stand. I got it. Yeah. And also, you know what? I feel like I should just say this for people who are not actually residents of Colorado, who might not know what we're talking about. King Soopers is a grocery store here in Colorado. It's like a Kroger grocery store. When I first moved to Colorado, I was like, what do you call? Yeah, because where I come from, it was Winn-Dixie, But anyway, just to clear that up. But so this is really good, like practical advice. I'm just going to bring up something that is floating in my mind right now. I don't know if this is a concern for some of the people that are listening, but there's like a shift, like some jobs have kind of closed down under the certain circumstances. And there are some industries where there's just an explosion of need. So it's like just shifting from one place to the other. If I personally were going to apply for a job at Walmart or King Soopers, stocking groceries or whatever, I personally would be concerned for my safety right now. Because I wonder in some of these environments how safe and protected some of these workers really are from like getting sick. I mean, I'm thinking specifically of like somebody checking out groceries all day long without like, a hazmat suit. Like, I don't know if that's a good idea anymore. And what if theoretically you're in a situation where the jobs that are available to you are ones that may put you at risk or in danger and aren't like in a formal medical environment where there would be hopefully some, protections in place. Are there ways of advocating, do you think, for like safety needs, or would you just say pass on the job opportunities that you feel uncomfortable with for practical reasons right now? I know that's a big question that there might not be an easy answer for. It's more of just let's discuss.
I think that that's a really good question. From what I've seen, any customer-facing organization that is still open is working really, really hard to keep their people healthy. Partially on a liability standpoint, but also on the flip side of that, from just a pure practicality standpoint, if all of your people get sick, you can't continue forward.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of companies, a lot of organizations work very hard to think creatively about how they can be safe and how they can be also continue to operate. I think that it is absolutely something that you can say, I'm really sorry, this isn't something that I'm comfortable doing. I will always tell people that you can always turn down a job right up until the point that, you can always turn down a job. If it offers you a job, you can still turn them down.
Yeah.
And so you can, if you apply for a position, you get all the way through the hiring process, and then they say, hey, you're going to be a checker at the cashier stand, and you say, that is not something I feel comfortable doing. I'm so sorry. I have to not take the job. That's totally okay.
Yeah. Or can I wear a mask or take some kind of precautions, or you ask for those accommodations? Yeah.
Those accommodations are always absolutely there. With the stimulus bill that was just passed, there are a lot of healthcare related provisions in there. So if somebody gets sick, if somebody needs some additional accommodations, those are all of a sudden available for people that weren't even there a week ago.
That's good to know.
It is something that is available for individuals. Flip side of that, I think that healthcare workers wear masks and gloves as PPE. And I think from what I've seen,
personal protective equipment. Sorry, I had to work that out in my own brain.
I think this is a nurse who uses a lot of technical
The lingo.
But I think that a lot of people are, from what I can see in grocery stores, are already using those.
Like workers?
Yeah, workers.
I went on Saturday and I had on my little mask and my little rubber gloves. But it was my birthday, and that's what I got from my sister, was a N95 mask that she found in her garage and rubber gloves. It's cool. She didn't even come out to give them to me in person because we're social distancing. She left them in a paper bag on her porch. So anyway, I put them on and I went to the grocery store, and there were other people shopping that had that kind of thing, but like the workers did not. And I was so afraid for their safety, but I have not been out of the house since, but you're saying that that's changing more recently. And I'm so glad.
What I've seen, I went to the grocery store. Today is Friday, Tuesday, and all of the grocery store workers were wearing gloves and were wearing masks.
I'm so glad to hear that. So. That's good. Okay. But then, big takeaway here is don't get panicked about finances to the point where you're putting your health and safety at risk, and advocate for yourself, and don't just take what people want to give you if you feel like it's going to put you in danger. Okay. Good takeaway.
Take care of your personal self first.
Yeah.
The stimulus act that happened this week is pushing up the unemployment for anyone that applies by, I think, about $600. So it's pretty significant.
Yeah.
We're able to take home. So it is important that if you want to go take another job, you can be. Unemployment is there for people who do need it.
Yeah.
It is something that is also available if that's another option you want to take.
Well, that's very reassuring. I think it's so important to have these kinds of practical conversations to just sort of like put a floor under that fear and just the reality based, like, what am I going to do kinds of things.
I always tell people when I talk to them about interviewing in a crisis situation is the worst thing you can do is be fearful and anxious. Number one, it reflects in your interview. People don't want to hire people who are desperate.
Yeah.
I liken interviewing a lot of times and job searching to dating. If you go on a first date with somebody and they look at you and go, "Oh my gosh, I need to find somebody to marry," you're going to turn around and run.
Yeah.
And it is no different in interviewing. Yeah. And a lot of times that desperation can seep out. And so if you can just calm yourself.
Yeah.
Take some deep breaths. Be able to say, there are options, there are ways that we can address this that are not going to have a long-term impact. It is, how do I say it? You will help yourself in simply looking for a job. Because people will be more interested in talking with you because you won't appear panicked and desperate.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up a great point. And I think something that I talked about a couple of podcasts ago, but is that, when we are very anxious, our brains don't work that well. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to make really thoughtful things. And so decisions. And so like figuring out how to calm yourself down physiologically is really essential, both for the interview, but Markie, like what you were talking about before too, is that decision making and kind of long-term thinking process that requires a lot of like calm and safety to even go there mentally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just going back to your original question around advocating too. So many people that I work with are in the beginning stages of this were concerned around how long they were actually going to be exposed into the public. So with what we were talking about around safety and how to advocate if you are going in for one of these jobs at a supermarket or where you might feel more exposed than if you were at your house, absolutely 100% advocate for yourself. I went to Trader Joe's. They had this system down packed, social distancing. They had the 6-foot markers out for the line. They were wiping down carts. It was great. And then I go next door to CVS to pick up something, and they had a completely different protocol that was not nearly
roller derby.
advanced.
Yeah.
And it really does start with you saying, I don't feel comfortable. Can we try this? And if you're not offering an option for your manager, your employer, other coworkers, what you're doing is you're creating trouble for yourself, because you're saying, I'm not comfortable, but I don't know what would make me comfortable. And to Allison's point, you want to seem assured. You want to also be assured internally too that you have control over your situation. Mm-hmm. And so make sure that you are confidently speaking up for what your needs are at any point. Yeah. Going back to this idea as well of, how do you deal when you are anxious, when you are worried? You absolutely can take from past experiences. And that's what I'm actually noticing. A lot of my clients that tend to be maybe more anxious personality types are actually kind of doing the best right now.
I've noticed that too.
Yeah.
People who are just usually they're fine. And it's the people who are usually solid are the ones who are totally freaking out right now. What do you make of that, Markie?
For me, I think about things in terms of patterns, and I really see that people that have practiced coping skills, that are fully aware that their anxiety has been a problem and they want to change it, have already accepted that about themselves, that they might be anxious in a situation that other people aren't anxious in. But they say, I'm not going to judge myself over it. And instead of ruminating, these are the things I know I can do to help soothe me. And for people that maybe haven't been in this situation where they're like, do I panic? Do I not panic? What is the right protocol here? How do I be myself when I'm at home all day? That takes a little bit more, kind of grunt work on the forefront to be able to get to that place of really feeling settled. So that's my thought, is that, practice does, create a better situation for people when they're actually in a make it work type of scenario.
I couldn't agree more. That's a wonderful reminder. And just again, the importance of those coping skills. Oh, actually, I should mention, sorry, I hope this doesn't feel intrusive to you too, but we have decided to make the Happy Mind unit of our online happiness class here at Growing Self available for free to anyone who wants to take it. You can get the link to access that class by texting texting the number 55444, text Happy Mind to the number 55444, and it will give you access to a little just video-based program that I put together that goes through some of the coping skills that Markie is describing, probably about, identifying the thoughts that make you feel really anxious, kind of basic mindfulness skills. It is not a substitute for getting involved in therapy or working with somebody like Markie, but it's just a very skills-based how-to instructional video series, and it's free right now just to help people. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's really great. I've had a lot of clients go through it.
Oh, good.
It's not even one where, they go through it and they're like, okay, I knew all of this. It really can make a lasting impression on how you are approaching your own mind's capability of self-soothing and providing comfort for yourself. So I'm just so happy that you're giving that as an option to people.
Why not? Okay. Happy Mind, all one word, to 55444. Share it with your friends. But okay. So aside from that though, because I have some other very specific questions about just operating under these circumstances as a professional in terms of work-life balance and working from home. And there's so much here, but, Markie, before we move on to that, could I just ask you for a minute to put your more of your therapist hat back on and talk a little bit about the experience that I think many people are having that you started talking about, which was, my plans have just been derailed. And how do I cope emotionally with the disappointment and the uncertainty? Because I think that's anxiety is one thing, but there's also this sadness, that the world we anticipated isn't happening right now. And I don't know if that's too big of a question or beyond the scope of what we can reasonably accomplish on a podcast here, but I mean, do you have any insight into that?
Sure, sure. I mean, I think first and foremost, I think this idea of things not panning out the way that you had originally planned is something that anyone can relate to. You know, we've had that relationship that we thought that person was the one end, or we had that, you know, degree program we finished, and once we got into that job, we didn't actually like it. Or, you know, someone that we care about is not in our life anymore. These are things that we as humans are going to come up against, but it does breed that sadness. And you know what? Sadness is a natural emotion. I don't want people to think, how do I get away from this? Instead of trying to run away from feeling that sadness or that disappointment, I encourage people to take time to grieve. Take time to think about how this has changed the way that maybe you look at life, you look at yourself, you look at the world. And you know, really come back to that place of, let me give myself compassion and gratitude for coming this far, and knowing that this isn't the end of your road. This is a new chapter for you. And so I encourage people that are feeling sad right now to feel sad. You know, this is something that is unexpected, unprecedented, and is jarring. So I think first and foremost, be very kind to yourself when you're feeling those emotions. And then, you know, once you are feeling maybe like you have wrapped your mind around accepting that this is different, moving into a place of saying, what can I use to transform this? To transform this to be the person that I'm looking to show up as. You know, so much of who we are is made up of different roles we have. And so maybe we just lost like our job. That was who we thought we were. You know, when someone asks, you know, what do you know, hi, I'm Markie, what do you do? You know, these are some of the first things we're talking and identifying ourselves as. And so how do you make your identity, your self-identity stronger in this moment? Maybe it's time to explore different facets of yourself, either outside of your job, or if you are in love with your job, how can you make this something that is spread in every different way? You know, I'm a therapist. I don't think about myself as like, I'm therapist Markie 5 days a week, and then on the weekends I'm like, you know, party crazy girl. And
are you party crazy girl on the weekends? We have not talked about this before. I don't get invited to Markie's parties. So anyway.
I am not hosting any parties anytime soon, kidding. But you can be invited to my virtual party. But no, I do think that this idea of congruency, you know, if you are out of your work right now and it was giving you so much joy, what gave you joy out of it? You know, what can you do to replicate that joy in and outside of your career? And, you know, taking those next steps to say, how can I get even more of that? Maybe right now I'm out of a job, but, you know, how can I get back into that? So if that is your true purpose, if you feel a strong sense of passion towards that, I believe that, you know, something like an unknown event won't necessarily hold you back from that.
That's wonderful advice. And you know what like the mental image that was kind of coming up in my mind as you were talking, it's like that idea of like the chrysalis, the crucible. It's like a stepping out for a while, and in this like container that you're sort of not in your real life, there's a lot of opportunity for development and evolution because of the isolation and not being in that day to day, where that can be very reflective, and you like kind of almost distilling into a truer version of you. And that when you reemerge from the cocoon, it's that you are you have grown because of that. And so like really embracing that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's what I heard in your story. That's good.
And I think from a very practical point, you can go through that process of really looking at the things you're grateful for, the things you appreciated. It will practically help you with your job, your next job search, because you will be able to talk about those things. You'll be able to bring them up in interviews. You'll be able to identify them in job applications. And a lot of what I talk about with people when I talk about resumes is really doing a very targeted resume a customed resume, and it's much easier to do that if you've been through the process of what Markie's talking about, of just sitting back and really focusing on what on the pieces that you are grateful for.
That clarity.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what a good message and a good takeaway.
Sorry, can I just make another comment? Because I do think that people that I work with, they come to me for that exact problem of not feeling clear. And in this time, I think it's really interesting because I think certain people have an idea of what clarity looks like too. Of, I'm going to feel this profound sense of awareness that this is what it is when I, see that job title. And it's actually more of an experience. And so I'm glad that we're talking about mixing that practical with that experiential, because I do think it's a part of exploring yourself and the world around you, which right now, guess what? It's the best time ever to explore yourself because the world around us is a little bit out there.
Closed.
So I do think it's, if anything, take time right now to get really in tuned with who you are and what your independent message is around your life. I mean, I can't think of a better time to do it than now.
That's a very, very important reminder. And I think particularly for, like people who are going into mindsets around, oh no, and despair, is like what I'm hearing both of you say over and over again is opportunity. That this is a rare opportunity in some ways to have that time.
And honestly, I have talked to thousands of people who have been in a situation. I worked as a third-party recruiter headhunter through the last recession. So I saw a lot of people who didn't have a job.
Yeah.
And I saw time and time again people who said at the end of all of it, I am so thankful for being laid off because it did lead to something more. It led to something better. And I think recognizing that even though it feels discouraging right now, that ultimately you will end up in a better place is a really good thing to kind of keep in mind.
Yeah. We will rise from the ashes. I love it. No, it's true. It's true. And to keep your eyes on that. And I'm wondering also if it's okay with you guys, if we were to shift gears just a little bit, because we've been talking, and rightfully so, about people who are in situations where perhaps they got laid off, their business closed, whatever, and they're needing to figure out like, okay, what's my next chapter? But we haven't talked about yet that I think is worth talking about is this new reality for people who do have jobs that they are now conducting from home, and what all that involves of being like a professional at home all day with your family and your husband. And like Markie, so you and I currently, we see clients from like, I always work out of a home office now. And so this is not actually that much unlike my usual life. The other people call it quarantine. I call it, this is, anyway, but like, so I'm used to it, but I know that I've talked to so many clients who are like, I'm going to kill my kids, or even other colleagues. Like I'm a part of a professional support group, and we met yesterday, and I talked to a couple of psychologist friends of mine who do not see clients online generally, and they are now. And they were talking about like their little 5-year-old, like, mommy, like knocking on the bedroom door the whole time that they're trying to meet with a client. And it's like, how do you cope with they're different worlds, and now they are all smushed together in terms of boundaries, work-life balance. Do you guys have any thoughts or suggestions about how to make that transition if your normal day-to-day has been like you are a worker person when you go to the office and you're a home person at home, and now it's all together? Allison, are you still with us? We lost your video.
I am. Oh, I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my video. Give me just a second.
So I asked you guys about like, how do you manage all of the new things that can happen when all of a sudden you're needing to be in a professional role while you are working in your home environment, and at that exact moment, Allison's Zoom camera stopped working. And it's like, exactly that is the thing that we now have to deal with all of a sudden. And just like, it's just like a new level of chaos, basically.
It is. I want to address that because we have a home office that is kind of in the middle of the house, and we have 3 small children. And so once all of a sudden we had to think about working from home, my husband is working from home full time, and then I'm still seeing people, and all of a sudden we had to think through, where is not necessarily the quote unquote office, but now where is the quietest place in the house?
Yeah.
The door that locks really reliably. And that has been the just kind of the challenge. All of a sudden we had to move the home office up to the master bedroom because that's the quietest place, because of carpeting as opposed to hardwood floor. But you really have to think about it. When I was thinking through just practical things that people are going to have to think through over the next couple of months as we walk through hiring in the middle of all of this, one of the things people are going to have to start thinking through is, how do you have video conferences reliably, professionally? How do you come across as engaged and enthusiastic when you're talking to a monitor screen as opposed to a person across the table?
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing if you are still in a position. You really have to think through, how can I do the best work possible, and how can I then walk away from that work at the end of the day?
That's it right there. But there are so many like really important things that I think are worth discussing, Allison, that you just brought up. And first is like crash course in how to create a professional image and experience when you are working in a home environment. And I don't think I told you guys, it hasn't come out yet, but we actually had someone, believe it or not, from the Wall Street Journal reach out last week to have a conversation about this, because we work out of our virtual offices, because we do a lot of, we have in-person offices too, but here at Growing Self, we do a lot of online-based work. And so they were like, how do you do this? And like having a professional persona. And we actually talked a lot about the details. Like, Markie, your background, I see your diploma behind you. You have it very nicely decorated. You have light. Both of you have light in front of your computer. You don't have like an open window sitting behind you. And these are all the kinds of things that people don't think about the first few times that they do Zoom or Skype. Is like, what's behind me? And what can people see? Is there enough light? Also some little etiquette things that people don't think about when they're on Zoom. Like, if you're messing around on your computer when you're talking to somebody online, they can tell, like those kinds of things. What are other tips or things that you have for people who are, now all of a sudden they're meeting with their company president and they're sitting in their master bedroom or whatever?
I think for me, camera placement is huge. As I talk to people, a lot of times people meet with me on their phones, or they'll meet with me off of maybe a laptop that they have moved to the most comfortable space in the house.
Comfortable.
The interesting thing that you have to be aware of, though, is if it's just like if you're taking a picture of yourself.
Yeah.
You would never want a picture hanging on your wall that was taken from underneath. It's unflattering. You can't see a lot of your facial expression. There's a lot of benefits to bringing a picture up to face level or even a little bit higher.
Yeah.
And you want to think about the same thing when you're looking at online meetings. Is can a meeting or an interviewer be able to see my expressions accurately?
Yeah.
And for us in our makeshift master bedroom office, all of a sudden that meant, because my husband has the traditional monitor downstairs, I now have a stack of books under my
to lift it up.
Just lift it up to the point where it sits probably higher than I can type, but it looks the best with interviewing. And one of the things that you can easily do, we're all social distancing. Everybody's sitting at home. Call up your mother or your best friend and say, hey, would you have a Skype conversation with me while I really work these kinks out? That's a really easy thing to do. And people have the time on their hands to help you out. So
definitely.
I love that.
And if you can, use a laptop instead of a phone for a professional call. I think that point makes a big difference too.
It's huge.
Did you have something else, Markie?
Yeah, I mean, I have been doing completely online work for about a year now. And so I have played around with all of this. So I played around with my background, but I also, you know, the book underneath the laptop is great. I have a couple different tips. So my first one, I have two holy grails, actually. One is a sound machine. Sound machine goes so far in terms of just feeling, one, like you have your room to yourself. Two, to also make sure that, you know, if there is, you know, a dog barking or, you know, the kids in the background or something like that, that it can be drowned out fairly easily. Nice. And so I really love having a sound machine, and I have a couple that I feel like, you know, some are static noise, others are a little bit more soothing. And so it's your choice, but I love having my sound machine. It's like my favorite thing. The second thing, actually I have it right here, are my blue light glasses. And my blue light glasses, I will be online a lot throughout the day in meetings, not necessarily working on something, which I can get dived into if I'm working on something, but in meetings, I really want to be able to pay attention to that person. And in interviews, it's the exact same way. You really want to be able to let go of maybe what your body fidgets are, what maybe you might have a headache. And I just feel like blue light glasses are really wonderful if you are going to be doing meetings or interviews online, just because it helps out with your own sense of comfort. So a lot of mine are around your own sense of comfort. But other than that, I also think just the room that you're in, you know, making sure that you're comfortable in it. You know, I recently wrote an article and said, you know, I do think you should get dressed in the day to go to work, even if your work is, you know, on the couch instead of bed. But, you know, I'm not going to tell you to give up your yoga pants. Like, if you are stoked that you get to wear yoga pants every day, go ahead, wear them. And so I think that there's some of this you can embrace. And then other pieces that you just have to be a little bit more thoughtful.
Yeah.
I think one thing that you really need to think through is that how people see you is not going to change based on the fact that they know you're at home or know you're not. Everybody can understand when a toddler walks into the room and says, "Hey, Mom, my toe hurts." I think everybody is going to be able to give you a pass for that.
Sure.
How you present yourself, like Markie said, a sound machine is a fabulous idea. Able to just create enough white noise that you're not distracted.
Yeah.
Simple things like turn off your notifications on your phone, turn off your notifications on your computer, so that you're not constantly looking away. Things like find a place in your house that has really good internet. If you don't have a dedicated home office with your router right next to you, find a place that's going to be quiet, but also find a place that you're not going to be struggling with your connection.
Yeah.
So really think through the ways that people will perceive you. What are you going to look like from the waist up? I mean, have you gotten around to brushing your teeth? Or not your teeth, your hair?
That doesn't matter.
But really, looking at the way that people perceive you is not going to change. So your boss is still going to have either conscious or unconscious perceptions of you and what you're doing and how much you're putting forth at home based on what they're seeing online.
Yeah.
Seeing in a picture. So make sure that doesn't change, or maybe even you need to step it up one notch so that when you get back into the office, if there are cuts, if there are layoffs, if there are furloughs, people look at you and go, he was working at home, she was working at home, and she really was bringing her A game at home all day.
That is a great point. And just to pause there, that if you are working from home in an organization where you have to report, I think that is actually a great strategy to be at least a few times a day communicating with your supervisor about here's what I'm doing, because otherwise they're like, they're baking cookies, they're watching Netflix. How do I know what's happening? And so that you're really actively helping them understand that you are productive, you're committed, you're doing it. I like that.
And I think I was reading online today that not to necessarily bring a negative spin to this, something like 20 to 25% of people, of households, have lost income in the last 2 weeks. And so the reality is, if you are still employed, if you are still working, be thankful. And also be gracious about it, but then also just say, hey, what am I going to do to further kind of prove myself from layoff? And it's very, very easy to just say, I'm going to work a little bit a little harder at that I give to people online. So.
That's a great point. That if you do have a job, do what you can to secure your position, because if there are other layoffs to come, that they will value you and not want to let you go.
Yeah.
That's a great point. So, hey, I know that we don't have a ton of time left. I'm hoping that just really briefly before we end today, we could shift gears again and talk just a little bit about managing that, what you brought up, Allison. I think, Markie, you did too, that work-life balance to get when you work from home. How do you exit sort of like worky work mode and, transition to being a partner and a mom, and when it's all in the same place? Do you have tips for helping people with that? And also even perhaps like, healthy routines when working from home? I think that would be helpful.
Absolutely. I mean, the routine has changed. The routine used to be you go to work, you come home, you have that kind of symbolic kind of exit and enter, which was also physical. You don't have that anymore. And so we have to develop new routines. Now, we also have to be flexible here, because you're also dealing with other people in your household that are also dealing with different routines. And so you're going to have to do a lot of compromise and a lot of communication. That's first and foremost.
Yeah.
And I usually recommend people have a conversation with their partners, or if they can, their children, and talk about what is going to be the arrangement. If you're going into this without explicitly talking about expectations, I don't know how successful you're going to be at that. And even if you do go with explicit expectations and maybe, it lands below that, around having continued communication around, okay, this didn't really work out. So what can work out? Let's brainstorm. And it might mean that things do look different. So to what Allison said earlier around really putting in your best effort, people are going to feel stressed to do that. They're going to feel pressured to do that, as well as to be, the home tutor to their kids, as well as to be the babysitter, all of these things, and to get the household clean, and because you're all living there all the time now. And so how can you do all of these things? I think first you have to understand what's realistic for you. Really get clued in on what your boundaries are. If you can't manage doing all of the work and all of the childcare and all of the housework on top of that and cooking meals, this is just getting a little too much. So pick and choose what your needs are. Prioritize now on what it is that you absolutely have to have, and then make adjustments to the things that fall below that. And then, of course, have conversations with loved ones. See if they can help you out. That's, I think, a lot of the hard part is right now, because routines change. We feel like we have to have all of the control, since so much is out of our control. Ask for help. This is a time for our community. And I hope for most people, I know I sure feel this way, that, if you can give, do. And that probably means to the closest person next to you as well, not just strangers.
That's a good reminder. That charity starts at home. I love it. And also about the communication and negotiation, but also like that I actually, Markie, as you were talking, I'm like, I need to work on this, that you actually can't do it all, and to make some decisions and just Let it go. We are opening cans of soup tonight for dinner. Like, we have to go there sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
I also think that it's really important as if you are a family unit, to really understand that, number one, that communication and that expectation piece is so important, but then also communicating that with coworkers and bosses and everybody else that you're working with, because things are going to change. And I think that everybody is being a little bit more gracious right now because everything is up in the air. But you can very easily tell your boss, tell your team that you're working with, you know, we're trying to manage childcare here. I'm taking the 8 to 12 shift. She's taking the 5 shift, and we're gonna and I'm gonna pick back up between 8, and that's totally acceptable. I think the only thing that could go wrong is that you don't communicate clearly enough. If you can tell people, this is what I can do in this situation, people are going to be much more understanding and accepting.
That's a great reminder that everybody is like, I know, me too, but if you're not telling people what's going on, they won't know and will just experience you as being unavailable for big parts of the day. So you need to tell them. Yeah.
It's really true.
And I want to point out too, I'm going to shout out to my single folks out there too that are living alone during all of this and can maybe feel like claustrophobic, or maybe you're extroverted and are trying to use work as a distraction even, and trying to say, how do I maintain proper work because I feel like I might be going crazy. I'm doing a lot of hours because it's distracting. To also find balance here and making friends with yourself too. I know I keep saying it, but be compassionate, you know, be able to know your limits and to say, you know what, right now, I'm not going to get all of the type of energy I get from being around friends, family, coworkers that usually energizes me and can make me a more productive person. So really try and structure. You're not going to be at your 100% like you are when you're around all of those people, but maybe, you know, you're operating at 85, 90, sometimes maybe 75%, and really say, okay, that's going to be something that I have to take into account and make those adjustments around that of, okay, how do I get out? How do I make sure I'm calling my friends on FaceTime?
I think that that's such a great point, Markie. And like that, I know I've experienced this if I'm not careful, just because I do work from home, and you really do have to shift gears, and especially thinking about somebody who maybe is single or doesn't live with other people, it could be so easy to just keep working because there isn't anything else to like shift into. And so you're saying be really deliberate about like almost making, and certainly having that relationship with yourself, but like almost structuring the time in such a way as like I'm on and I'm off, and filling your life back up with things that aren't you being in worker mode. So FaceTime calls. I am planning on having a glass of wine with my sister over FaceTime later this evening, like doing stuff like that and making it a point to have that community. Oh, actually, you know what? I should mention this too. Did you guys know that our colleague Brenda Fawn recently started hosting an online coping with coronavirus support group through Growing Self? It is going to be Thursdays at 7 p.m. online. All are welcome. And it's just like once a week, a drop-in kind of deal to talk about what's going on, but also to like have a sense of community during a time that can really feel extremely isolating. Yeah.
Wonderful. I love that. That's a really great resource.
Yeah, I hope that people sign up for it. I think it'll be really good, and particularly just as like a supportive place to go that's not work, and it's not, you know, your same old people in your life, but really like a space that's devoted to how are you feeling? How are you doing? What are we all doing to get through this? I think it'll be good. Yeah.
I think as you're talking about community and the need for community, it's also really important from my perspective when I talk to people about who have gone through job loss and who are looking for jobs. One of the first things you can always do is start networking. And the word network is a professional word for community. Yeah. And so it doesn't just have to be a professional level. And I think that saying today, whether you have a job or you recently lost a job, I am going to work on my community. I'm going to work on my network. And maybe that is a fulfilling side of your job. But it can be something as clinical as building a LinkedIn profile. And it could be something as warm and fuzzy as reaching out to old friends and just saying, hey, how are you doing? How are things going? Reaching out to old coworkers and saying, hey, can we have a FaceTime conversation as to how you're feeling about this? And I really think that there is time right now that building community and building a professional network are one and the same right now. So it's something that cannot hurt you in the professional world moving forward.
Definitely. And isn't that ironic in some ways that in this time of sort of isolation, I think that so many people in our lives are really craving that kind of contact. And so you might have opportunity to really deepen relationships or even professional relationships because people are like, yes, let's talk. Well, and I just want to say before we end how thankful I am to you two for being, part of our little community. I should share. So we here at Growing Self, we began an internal support group just for our team to begin meeting once a week and talking about everything. And I'm very grateful for you guys to feel your presence and to, have the feeling that we are in this together, and for your willingness to join me today on this podcast for the benefit of our listeners to talk about some of the tools and strategies and ideas that we all need right now. So thank you.
Thank you for having us. It's really fun to talk.
Yeah. It's my pleasure. This is so fun to get to talk to both of you.
Good. Well, thank you again for doing this with me. And hopefully we'll see you at our team support group on Monday. I'll be there in my yoga pants.
Great.
Wonderful.
Well, thanks both of you. This was